We're doing a story on this man here, and we're wondering if you could tell us who he is.
I don't know.
Never heard of him?
No.
Would you be able to identify who this man is?
Boris Johnson?
Boris Johnson.
I don't know.
Close. Close.
Why is he drinking milk?
That's a good question. Keean Bexte for Rebel News in Regina today in Andrew Scheer's stomping grounds. This is where he went to university, actually. I'm at his alma mater, the University of Regina, and we're doing a story today on his resignation, or really his lack thereof. Andrew Scheer announced last week that he would be resigning from the leadership of the Conservative Party. He sent an email out to everyone saying just that, very explicitly. I have resigned as leader. Now, it was just a few hours after that email went out when he reneged on that statement. Andrew Scheer is not resigning. He's actually going to be staying on for months, perhaps even longer than a year. Now, keep in mind, the Conservative Party of Canada is hosting a convention in April. This will be in Toronto, and it would be a perfect time to pick a new leader. But the party says that's just not going to work. Andrew Scheer is still staying on as leader, maintaining his hiring and firing duties. He's fired the executive director of the party, someone who will be explicitly in charge of managing the upcoming leadership election, if in fact one ends up happening. I want to tell you a story from 1979. It's when Joe Clark defeated Pierre Trudeau, and Pierre Trudeau announced his resignation. In late November of '79, Pierre Trudeau said that he would be stepping down as leader, and it seemed like it was to bide his time. It was to take the heat off of him after the disastrous election of Joe Clark. After the Liberals lost an election they thought that they could win. After Trudeau announced his resignation, his caucus voted unanimously to keep him on. I wonder where I've heard that before. That's the exact same thing that happened to Andrew Scheer. He announced his resignation amid scandal, and, well, his caucus said, you should stay on. It would be a shame, just as they said to Pierre Trudeau, it would be a shame to lose someone of such high quality leadership in a time when the Prime Minister is so incapable, just like Joe Clark was, just like Trudeau was. Joe Clark had a minority government and Trudeau had a minority government. Well, just after Pierre Trudeau announced his soon-to-be resignation, guess what? Pierre Trudeau orchestrated a vote of non-confidence and Joe Clark's government collapsed. And wouldn't you know it, the Liberals, amid Trudeau's sagging popularity, well, they ran the campaign without Trudeau really at the forefront of it. They more ran the campaign against Joe Clark rather than running it with Pierre Trudeau on the masthead. They won that election and they formed Pierre Trudeau's last majority government. And that was the government of Trudeau's that was perhaps the most disastrous. That was the government of the National Energy Program and many other disastrous policies. Now, Andrew Scheer announced his resignation, but perhaps it was just like what Pierre Trudeau did, to keep the heat off of him in a time of scandal, so he could bide his time and wait for the government of the day to collapse. That could happen. Trudeau's in a minority position with parties biting at his heels, hoping for the government to collapse. Now, you might be wondering why I'm walking around with a picture of Andrew Scheer. Well, I'm in Regina at his stomping grounds, at his alma mater, the University of Regina, and I'm going to ask the folks who would be voting for Andrew Scheer if they even know who he is, and if they do, if they still think he's leader. We're doing a story on this man here, and we're wondering if you could tell us who he is.
I don't know.
Never heard of him?
No.
Would you be able to identify who this is? No? Do you recognize this man? No? He just fought a federal election, and he's actually from Regina.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, no idea who that is.
Okay. Just asking folks if they can identify who this is.
Can't, sorry.
Stephen Harper.
Stephen Harper. Would you be able to identify who this man is? No? Milk drinker. There you go. Would you be able to identify who this man is?
Boris Johnson?
Boris Johnson.
I don't know.
Close. Close.
Why is he drinking milk?
That's a good question. Would you be able to tell me, do you recognize this man?
Oh, yeah.
You'd be surprised with some of the responses I've gotten.
Did I know?
Would you be able to tell me, can you identify who this is?
Yeah, I know who he is.
That is my homie.
Is he the leader of the Conservative Party?
Not anymore. He just stepped down.
He resigned.
I thought he resigned for sure.
No, didn't he just step down?
Yeah.
Now, is he still the leader of the party, or did he resign?
No, he resigned.
Now, isn't that just a little bit strange? In Andrew Scheer's home turf, hardly anybody recognizes him. And keep in mind, this isn't just the middle of a political cycle. This is at the end of a federal election when every single person who went to the polls should have known at least the leaders of the party, and especially in Regina, Saskatchewan. People were confusing him with maybe Boris Johnson, maybe Stephen Harper, if they recognized it was a politician at all. And the ones that did, what was their answer to the question, is he still leader? Well, they all thought that Andrew Scheer resigned. Well, he hasn't. He's still leader, and he could be leader for the next year. And it's not unlikely that in that time, Justin Trudeau's government collapses. And if that government collapses while Andrew Scheer is leader, and doesn't matter how few people recognize him, he will be the leader that faces off against Trudeau. I still think that Andrew Scheer believes he can move his family from Stornoway to 24 Sussex. I just don't think he's let everyone else in on his plan. For Rebel News, I'm Keean Bexte. Thanks for watching Rebel News' coverage here on location in Regina. If you want to help us with coverage just like this, the best way to do that is to purchase a premium subscription. You can do that at rebelnews.com. You'll get access to tons of content that isn't publicly available, and it's just a few bucks a month.